What is up, guys? Evanaldo here. Welcome back to the channel. So really exciting time for Bitcoin and Ethereum. I just want to look at the first thing. Funding rates are still really good. If you're familiar with funding rates, anything below 0.01, I mean, overall really good for. So there's not that many people like going along on Bitcoin, which means generally, it doesn't always mean you're going to keep going up, but it means that you generally got a good, it's a healthy market generally. And then Ethereum, I think Ethereum's a little bit more people going along, but still that's a very healthy number. Right there, these are kind of the latest trades that I've been in. Some really nice gains on Ethereum and, kind of waiting for Chainlink to come up a little bit more. That was a bigger trade than I realized. Actually, we should look at Chainlink in this analysis, but yeah, so anyway, check those out. If you guys are interested in trading, I posted all of these in Discord, stop loss, take profit, entry points, all that. It's, mainly all swing trades that I kind of posted in the Discord ahead of time. I think those have, some of the highest success rates here. And we also got Nightshade in the Discord as well, KMAC as well. So if you're interested in that, check out the link down below for the Discord. If you want to get a free month there, these are the three exchanges I've been using lately. No KYC, no VPN. So the BitFi promo, you could get 10K worth of Bitcoin, up to 10K worth of Bitcoin, ends in 13 days. 20% of your fees for life with my link as well. For BitFi, 20% of your fees for life as well with BloFin. You can see it right there. And then 100K deposit and trade rewards. And then kind of similar deposit bonus on Bitunix. The only difference with Bitunix is with my link, you get 25% off your fees for life. So, yeah, I mean, pick your poison. They're all generally, kind of the same. I wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket because you do, I don't think any of these are going to go, belly up in the bear market next year, but anything is possible. You guys know what happened with FTX. Now we're seeing a lot more Bitcoin backed loans and all that type of stuff come out. So it's a little bit of a repeat of last time, a little bit. So be careful with that. I mean, the thing with, borrowing against your Bitcoin, this video is not about that, but, the thing about that is like, you got to be prepared for your liquidation point to be, 70%. Don't have a liquidation point above 40K or something. I'm not saying it's going that low, but you never know with some of these wicks and stuff that, be careful with some of these things, and it's kind of a factor that shows, it doesn't show a top signal, but it shows we're getting to the end of this cycle. And, you think people would have figured out the 4-year cycle by now, but there's always debate like, no, yes, you know what I mean? 4-year cycle, a lot of people giving up on ETH, and now ETH is almost freaking at a, new all-time high. We're, I think, 8% down from, previous all-time highs. So, yeah, so be careful with all that. But, let's actually get into the real TA right now. And that's the thing here, just crazy. I mean, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but, I've been bullish on ETH throughout this area. I was kind of bullish throughout the drop here, to be honest with you. But, it's, from a trading perspective, it's okay, and, you hold and it comes back. But, here we go. Money flow looks good. It looks like continuation. The next big point is going to be 4,600, 4,700. I don't even think you're going to get, if I had to guess here, I don't think you're going to get a ton of people that want to get eaten up and, FOMO longs probably until the old all-time high. And even if you do get that, it would probably be enough to bring you up a little bit, to 5K or whatever into, next couple weeks or something. And then from there, I think that September is probably going to be your pullback. So, everything looks pretty good right now. This is kind of like almost like use good risk management, but it's almost like taking candy from a baby trying to long up to, 46 or 48 here. I could be wrong. Anything could happen. There's always black swan, unexpected things. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of my guess. Something like this, maybe once you get a little mania, people back in the seat at the old all-time high, if you can break above this area. And then, maybe dilly-dally, get boring a little bit, and then into September or something, you get your kind of correction back down to probably somewhere around these areas. That's, kind of what happens, and then kind of recovery upward into October. So I think there's, generally, I'm not going to try to tell you the exact dates, everything's going to bottom out or all that, but, I generally think you can do something like this into October to 7K. Can you get up to 10K, 11K? I mean, maybe. Probably less likely. You probably would need us to keep going up until October or after October, probably until November, December, which I don't know. Based on previous halving cycles and all that, the peak was, in October, at least for Bitcoin. You could ETH and the other ones keep going. Maybe, who knows? But I think the DCA out period that always makes sense, as I've told you guys a lot of times in these videos is from October, beginning of October to end of December. And I think if you can be robotic and stick to that, that's the biggest thing. Now, if you want to just get out all at once, probably the big place to do so would be probably on the next 3-week red dot, which is probably going to be somewhere between October and December. That could be a decent option as well. One of those two things kind of make the most sense, I think. Bitcoin, I think, can get up to that 130 or something, or I don't really care what Bitcoin does here. I mean, I think there's more money to be made, obviously, going along in Ethereum right now. But I think you could hit potentially into August 18th or the end of the month 130K Bitcoin, which would be really nice. And then if you were to look at, the thing is, like, you come up here. Let's say you come up here, you dilly-dally a little bit. You get a drop down September. I kind of feel like it's going to be more beginning of September. Somebody is saying September 2nd after that. I forget exactly why, but, sometime in September. And then something like this, that kind of makes sense for your peak there. And then, there's your typical kind of pullback with probably lesser, lesser than this. It's probably, well, actually, that's pretty wild. Yeah, if you do peak out earlier, your bottom's probably going to be in October of 26. I don't think it's going to be that low, but I think, 50K, these areas probably maybe a little bit lower inception of the ETF, just previous cycles, hate to, I don't want to sound negative, but that's just usually what happens. But, it's a little bit more macro than probably people care about at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, ETH versus Bitcoin, you've erased a ton of pain here. You're back at the evaluations in October of 24, which, so I guess if you converted at any point around here, you'd be technically above, especially if you were staking Ethereum, earning some interest on it or whatever. It kind of worked out. I mean, obviously, hindsight's 2020. You could have converted there, but, it's hard to get the exact bottom. But if you have the patience, then you get there. Then you get it. And then, I think you could at least come up here on ETH versus Bitcoin. ETH versus Triple Q is interesting because if you look at, if you bought ETH here, you would have bled, against the NASDAQ about 37%. I think we should be able to, this is a big test here. This would be good. If we can make a new all-time high against the NASDAQ, it could reject from the old all-time high against the NASDAQ. This new all-time high against the NASDAQ too, from that peak to that peak, 58%. Yeah. And I mean, from this peak to that peak, that's 45. I don't think you could probably get up that high. Maybe you can. I was just looking at some fib levels, but it's interesting here. I mean, 78% against the NASDAQ. I mean, if you get up to 7,300, I could see making a new all-time high against the NASDAQ, which is good. You want to compare this to, other, generally safer assets. So, yeah. In terms of altcoins, this is where things get exciting. I think after that September pullback, or relatively soon, you should see the bottom on a lot of these altcoin ETH evaluations, especially as ETH makes a new all-time high, hopefully within a few weeks. And maybe this low for Solana ETH, and I mean, what could Solana ETH do on that low? Hopefully, something of this nature, get a nice little recovery, jump up, 0.06, back to these levels, maybe even higher, into October or something. I don't know. But I think it can jump a little bit. That might have been the high against ETH. I don't know. It can get volatile, especially in some of these, times here. Wow. From that, that was into the peak, it did come up. So, yeah, there's that. Others versus Bitcoin, I mean, that's probably going to continue forward. ETH is outperforming, most alts right now. ETH versus others hit a big point. And that's kind of the same peak that you saw in August of 21. We're right around schedule there. So, is this the top? I don't know. I mean, money flow would tell you it's going to come up a little bit more, but that next weekly anchor could be the rejection here. So I guess this is the first place where alts may start to outperform ETH. Look at Cardano. That's kind of begging for a rally up to $2. I think you'll eventually hit that. That weekly looks really good with money flow. Some people have asked me to look at HBAR. I want to look at it on a chart with a little more data. This has got a good shot at 90 cents. If you could break upward from here, which I think you probably should do so. I'm curious about HBAR ETH, if we're going to have to do this old-fashioned way to get this one up, but HBAR versus ETH, that's kind of blooded with everything else. Maybe that peak that we're very close to, this could get some recovery against Ethereum. SUI is one people have asked me about. I think you should be able to jump up to, 660 to 750, those kind of areas for a potential peak, maybe even higher, maybe even $10 into October. We'll see what happens with this. Some of the ones that have hype, some of them, they kind of died down a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised. if it only gets up to like $6. So yeah. And then Crow, I don't know. I was looking at this kind of breaking upward. I think this could probably jump up to 26 cents at least, and hopefully 42 cents in the coming months. There's some potential here. AVAX 2 weekly looks pretty good. So I think that the thing here is I wonder, what would happen. Let's say, we jump up a little bit more in the next couple weeks, and then we come back into like, it's going to be much more, quicker than, kind of quicker than that. I want to go on a lower time frame here, but, this, and then this, and then this, I don't know, that's into end of year, maybe more. Big moves happen quickly. We'll see what happens. I mean, I guess you're gonna look at some of these alts. It does get depressing because you're just like, how could this do a 10x that we want and make a new all-time high? Or well, we only need a 10x, probably a 5x for a new all-time high. 7x actually. No, 4 or 5, 6, 6x, 6 or 7x. How could it do it? I mean, I don't know. It's tough, but hopefully, somewhere between 60 to 100, maybe we can get there. The interesting thing too, I mean, obviously you're trying to outperform ETH here. Big area for AVAX versus ETH. Now this gets a little depressing. It's just like losing, you're kind of losing the area, but you're trying to get a little jump here. So there's some potential to maybe hit it on this anchor wave. So there's that. Maybe wait till the ETH makes a new all-time high and then hope, just hope. And I think based on previous cycles, a lot more people come into the seat. A lot more people come into the seat. You're seeing new people come into the seat right now, but not as much as a mania phase. Like there's a lot of, if you guys remember 21, that mania phase from 21 was basically from January to, May, and then a bit more from, May to early. I mean, it went on, but I would say if you're starting to kind of card in that phase right now, August to end of year, and even after the peak, say the peak's October, probably 6 months after the peak, you'll still see people, hoping we come back. So you do have that, but I think, ETH at a new all-time high, if that doesn't bring enough people back, I don't know what will. I think ETH at a new all-time high, that really should bring people back into the seats. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys right now. Smash the like button, always appreciate that. Subscribe if you're new, always appreciate that. And obviously, if you guys want to trade, check out the links down below. A lot of really good promos. You're not going to get 25% of your fees it's going to be hard to find that, especially for Bitunix, and then 20% of your fees for life on BitFi and BloFin. A lot of good bonuses on my links. So check it out if you guys are interested. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.